If you have your Bibles, get them out. Go to 1 Samuel chapter 14. First of all, let me say this. I am not sure how I got stuck preaching the last night after T.D. Jakes. I was watching him last night going, there's no way I'm preaching tomorrow night. I feel like I'm the guy that gets up to bat after Alex Rodriguez hits some bomb grand slam or something, and they're like, Bandon, you're up. Are you serious? No way. He was phenomenal last night. Did you enjoy him? Man, I was stirred. I'm moving to Dallas and going to his church. That's what's going to happen. I'm moving. I'm going to go there every Sunday. I thought the only good thing is we're on the same team. That's what I thought. You know, at least I'm coming up to bat after him, and we're on the same team. That's what makes me happy. 1 Samuel chapter 14. Are you there? Are you there? Do you have your Bibles? Can I see Bibles? Look at all the iPads and iPhones and who's got like old school paperback Bible? Look at that. We're still rocking it. You can underline it. 1 Samuel chapter 14, are you there? We're going to read a little passage of scripture, so hang with me. If you don't have your Bible, sit next to a Christian and read theirs. I don't really mean that. People are looking around now trying to see who doesn't have their Bible. I'm going to witness to you afterwards. 1 Samuel chapter 14, verse 1. We're going to skip around a little bit. We're going to read a little portion. Let me just set this up. The Israelites, Saul is king. The Israelites are at constant war with the Philistines. And this is one of those times when they are encamped against the Philistines, but not engaged with the Philistines. The Israelites are on one hill, and then there's a 3-mile valley between them, and then on the other hill are the Philistines. Jonathan, the story's about Jonathan. Jonathan is the son of Saul, and this is who we're going to encounter. Are you ready? Verse 1. Now it happened one day, we're going to come back to the verse. Now it happened one day that Jonathan, the son of Saul, said to the young man who bore his armor, come, let us go over to the Philistines' garrison that is on the other side. But he did not tell his father. Go down to verse 4. Between the passes by which Jonathan sought to go over to the Philistines' garrison, there was a sharp rock on one side and a sharp rock on the other side. The name of one was something and the other one was something else. Verse 6. Then Jonathan said to the young man who bore his armor, come, let us go over to garrison these uncircumcised. It may be that the Lord will work for us, for nothing restrains the Lord from saving by many or by few. So his armor bearer said to him, do all that is in your heart. Go then, here I am with you, according to your heart. Then Jonathan said, very well, let us cross over to these men, and we will show ourselves to them. If they say thus to us, wait until we come to you, then we will stand still in our place and not go up to them. But if they say thus, come up to us, then we will go up. For the Lord has delivered them into our hand, and this will be a sign to us. So both of them showed themselves to the garrison of the Philistines, and the Philistines said, look, the Hebrews are coming out of the holes where they have hidden. Then the men of the garrison called to Jonathan, his armor bearer, and said, come up to us, and we will show you something. And Jonathan climbed up on his hands and knees with his armor bearer after him, and they fell before Jonathan. And as he came after him, his armor bearer killed them. The first slaughter which Jonathan, his armor bearer, made was about 20 men within about a half an acre of land. Father, I pray tonight as we close out an incredible 3 days here in New York. We're so grateful for all that you've done. We're grateful for the bodies that you've healed. We're grateful for the destinies that you've ignited. We're grateful for the souls that were saved. We're grateful that your presence has been in this place. But tonight, God, I'm asking that you would come once again, that you would transform our lives. God, we want to be used in society as transforming agents. We want to be used as revivalists. But God, first we ask that you would ignite revival in our own hearts, that you would transform our lives so that we ourselves might be a transforming agent. We pray that you would come tonight in a significant way. I tell people this often, but I am somebody that always has to know what time it is. I can't stand not knowing what time it is. And it's been like that my entire life. I don't know why. Like, since I was a kid, I've worn a watch my entire life that I can remember. Somebody posted a Facebook, which God bless people that post high school photos of you if you're older in this room. I don't like those people. But somebody posted a picture of me in 2nd grade. And I was wearing a watch in 2nd grade. I would sleep with my watch. I would shower with I just always wore a watch. And I always have to know what time it is. And I have to know what time it is, not what kind of time it is. I want to know what time it is. Like if I ask you what time it is, if it's 3:33, I want to know it's 3:33, not 3:35. Don't tell me it's 3:35, it's 3:33. And everything has to line up. Like my watch has to line up with the microwave and the oven and the bathroom clock and my car clock and my alarm clock. They all have to line up. Like I will sometimes actually wait for the zeros. Go. I don't like if it's like 30 seconds. I don't know what it is. I have to know what time it is all the time. And I actually don't understand people that don't want to know what time it is or don't care. My wife is one of these people. She might wear a watch. She may not wear a watch. She doesn't know what time it is. Like when I go to bed at night, if I'm in a hotel room like we are here, I will position the clock in such a way that when I wake up in the middle of the night, I know exactly what time it is. And if it's too low, I'll put like books underneath it. And my wife doesn't care though. She doesn't know what time it is. She just kind of wanders around life not knowing what time it is. It's completely confusing to me. I can't even wrap my brain around that. And mainly because my theory is people that don't know what time it is are at the mercy of people that know what time it is. That's what I think. My youth pastor told us a story one time about a prank they pulled in college. And he was in college in Minnesota or something, and it was cold. Minnesota, we got somebody from Minnesota. And it was cold, and so in the winter it was dark and cold. And so what the university he went to had like systems where they had built like hallways that were fully covered and walls and everything in between all of the buildings, walkways, so that you could get from building to building without ever going outside. So these guys one night decided to play a prank on this guy in the dorm room where the whole floor was in on it. This guy goes to sleep. He's got to get up like at 7 to get to get ready and get to the cafeteria at 8 so he can get to class. So he goes to bed like at 11:30. And when he falls asleep, they go and change his clock to where an hour later, the alarm goes off, but it says 7 a.m. So he wakes up at 12:30, and it says 7 a.m. And he wakes up, and he looks at the clock, and he's tired, and he's like, I don't feel like I slept at all. And he gets out of bed, and his roommate is at the sink brushing his teeth. He's like, hey, good morning. He's like, you sleep all right? He's like, oh, I don't feel like I slept at all. Man, I slept great, And he goes in the bathroom, and his other roommate's like getting out of the shower. He's like, good morning, and he goes through his entire morning routine, the whole thing. Showers, shaves, irons, gets all his stuff together, the whole routine at 12:30 at night. Is walking down the dorm hallway. People are coming out of rooms and they're like, good morning. He's like, good morning. He goes all the way to the cafeteria and is pulling on the doors and they're locked. And he's like angry and confused and tired. Cannot figure out why the cafeteria is not open. Finally makes his way back up and the whole floor is just laughing at him. But that's my theory. If you don't know what time it is, you're at the mercy of those that know what time it is. Therefore, I always wear a watch. It's important that right now you recognize the time that you live in. It is critical that you are aware in America the timing of God. One of the things that grieves my heart the most is when I run into people in the church, believers, who are unaware of the timing or are unaware of what God is doing, are unaware of the time of heaven. They're unaware. They're not aware that the greatest revival the world has ever seen is on us right now. They're unaware that right now God is moving in America in an unprecedented fashion. They're not aware that right now God is awakening the hearts of an entire generation. I don't want, you have to recognize moments. You have to be in tune with the timing of heaven so that you can recognize the moment that's in front of you. If you don't know the moment that's in front of you, you will miss it and not give yourself fully to it. I don't want to get too crass in here, but I'll tell the story anyways. But we have 3 kids. They're all here. My wife's here, and I hope she's not in here because she's not going to be happy with me. And so we've had 3, she's had 3 children. And so for my first 2, we had like intercessor lady friends that were in there with us. And I don't know how, so we had intercessor lady friends in there. And so during the childbirth, I was just by her head the whole time, like, you know, loving on her and telling her how great she was, and she's the most amazing woman ever and beautiful, and I'm a horrible man, or whatever else she needed to hear in the moment, you know? Whatever brought peace to her. But I wasn't down by the action for the first 2. But for my boy, my 3rd one, it was just us in there. We didn't have anybody else come in. It was just us and the doctor. And this time I was down by the action. And I got to figure out, this is going to be a powerful point. Hang with me. So I experienced something that I'd never experienced with the first 2. There is a moment in childbirth where the head of the child, the baby, my boy, my son, the head of my son, just the very top of his head, you can see for the first time. It's the first moment that you physically lay eyes on your child. An incredible moment. Incredible. Like the only time you've seen your child is like in a sonogram, which is super depressing. Because they show you this picture and say, here's your child, and it looks like an alien. You think I'm supposed to think they're cute, but I'm really hoping something happens before that child comes out. We're having an alien baby, sweetie. This is the first time that I can see with my own eyes what I've fallen in love with for 9 months in that womb. Man, I talked to my kid, I sung to my kid, I poked my kid, I've interacted with my kid, I've named my kid, I got my kid's room ready, I did everything. But it's the first time that I actually physically see the baby. An incredible moment. Do you want to know why we're here in New York? We're here in New York because I just want to come and say, listen, in America, right now, I believe that what we have been praying for, what we have been crying out for, what we have been pounding on heaven's door for, an awakening in a generation, I can see it with my own eyes. There is a generation in America right now that are giving themselves fully to Jesus, everything in consecration to Him. As we travel across America, I am seeing them with my own eyes, completely abandoned to Jesus. And I'm saying, that's it, right there. I can see the head of this baby. I can see with my own eyes the generation that we've been praying for. It's right there. I come into places like this and experience your worship, and I think this is it. I can see with my own eyes the generation that we have been asking God to raise up, fully abandoned to you. But in that moment of childbirth, where you can see the head of the baby, there's only one thing to do there. Like, it is not the time to be distracted. It's not the time to go catch up on your emails. It's not the time to grab a bag of potato chips and watch Days of Our Lives. It's not the time to do anything, to push. That's it. There's one agenda. Nothing else in the universe matters at that moment. Nothing else. There's only one thing that matters. It's push. Just push. I just want to come tonight and say, listen to me, there is a generation in America that God is awakening. I can see it with my eyes. We have been around this nation right now, cities all over this nation. It is the same everywhere we go. There is a generation that is giving themselves fully to Jesus for His glory. And I just want to say, listen, in cities, we have to push. It is not time to be distracted. You have to recognize the moment when you see the head of the baby. There's nothing else to do. That's the moment we're in. That's the time that you're in right now. Here's what I believe the Lord told me. He told me this. He said, Banning, there's a generation of game changers that I'm about to put in. You know what a game changer is? Game changer is, it doesn't matter anything that's going on in the game. When they're put in, everything just changed. You know what I feel like in America? I feel like it's, it's seventh game. It's the seventh game of the finals. It's not looking very good for the home team. It's been a little rough. There's just tension in the whole arena. They're standing nervously, watching their team, wondering what's going to happen. People are biting their nails and stressed out. But they're looking down at the coach, and the coach is sitting calmly, kicked back, like he's not worried at all. As if somehow he knows something we don't in the audience. And you want to know what he was? You want to know what he knows? He knows that sitting on that bench is a generation of game changers. He's looking down the bench saying, oh, you don't even know in America right now. You can look around all you want. You can look at all that's happening in America. God's not worried. He's sitting on the bench relaxed. You want to know why? Because He says, what you don't know is I'm about to put in a whole generation of game changers. And when they come in, the game's about to change. You're a game changer. It doesn't matter what's happening on your campus. It does not matter it doesn't matter how dark your campus is. It doesn't matter how infested with drugs and sexual immorality and darkness and depression. None of that matters. You want to know why? Because the minute the Lord puts you in, the entire game just changed. I tell you, the Lord's awakening an entire generation of game changers, and He's about to stick them in. And we can look at Hollywood, and we can say, it's gone downhill. And I'm telling you what, God's about to put a generation of game changers into Hollywood, and the game's about to change. In politics, the game's about to change. In education, the game's about to change. In business, the game's about to change. That's who you are. You're a game changer. But let me tell you what. Jonathan and his armor bearer were game changers. They were game changers. You want to know the journey of a game changer? You want to know what happens in the life of a game changer? Jonathan is sitting with all the other Israelites, happy to be sitting, not engaged with the enemy of God in their land. They were sitting comfortable and they were sitting safe. 1 Samuel 14 starts out with this phrase, now it happened one day. There is a moment in your life, one day, that the Lord begins to stir your heart. There's a stirring that begins to happen in your life. You are a game changer. And what happens is, one day something begins to stir in your heart. Something begins to stir in your heart that says, I am not satisfied sitting in this place of comfort 3 miles away from the enemy. I want to engage in the cause of Christ in my day. Something begins to stir in your heart for the cause of Christ. I remember going to a Kings game. Let's pray again for the Kings in the name of Jesus. I was at a Kings game a few years ago. We were sitting up in the second level. I'm sitting and these two guys are in front of me and they're screaming the whole game. They're yelling though instructions to the coach. In fact, the whole game, I was just watching them. And they're sitting there, and game would be going on. The coach would put somebody in there like, come on! How can you stick that guy in? He's horrible. Don't put him in. They're yelling at the coach the entire time. As if the coach is listening to them. As if the coach is on the bench going, what should we do? I don't know, let me check with these guys. Hey guys, should I put this guy in? Oh no, he's not any good? Okay, this is what, like somehow they think this. They're yelling as if the coach can hear them and as the coach cares. I sat and watched these guys. I just want to say, you realize he can't hear you, right? You realize that? He's actually not paying attention to you guys, so. What happens is, you're sitting on a hill one day with all your friends, and the Lord starts stirring your heart. And you know what? You want to know what He stirs your heart to do? To not be satisfied with sitting on the sidelines of history watching the game happen. You were not called to sit in the stands and shout a few items at the coach. The mandate on your life is to be in the game. I want to affect the game. I want to be in the game. I want to change the game. I'm not called to sit on the sideline. Listen, I am called to change history. I'm not called to watch it happen in a generation. You're not here to sit and watch your entire generation drown in pain and sin and sickness and depression and suicide and abortion and drugs. You're not called to sit on the sideline. I tell you, there's a stirring that begins to happen, something that begins to burn deep within you. That all of a sudden one day, you realize, I am not going to sit here. I'm going to engage in the cause of Christ in my time. I am going to stand up and leave my place of comfort. I'm going to stand up and leave my place of safety. I want to take on an entire army of the Philistines. I wasn't called to sit in the stands. I was called to get in the game. I was called to take on an entire army of the Philistines. Nobody likes sitting on the bench. Nobody has a goal of, I just really hope one day I can sit the bench. This is what happened in my life. I got saved at 4, genuinely saved at 4. Swam out to the pastor at 5 and got baptized. 17 knows when I fully surrendered my life. Went forward at a sermon one day and Sunday night, and I knelt at the altar and I said, God, if I'm going to do this Christianity thing, I'm going to do it 100%. And I just gave everything to Jesus. But it was at 22 years old that my heart began to burn for the cause of Christ in the earth. It's not just that I want to give myself to Jesus. I want to give myself to the cause of the one that saved me. I don't just want to sit in my prayer closet and love Jesus. I want to give myself to his cause. And I found myself at 22 beginning just to burn inside. My pastor, Bill, who spoke on Thursday night, he had come to our church and he began to tell stories of revival. He began to tell stories of revivalists. He began to tell stories of entire cities that were saved and nations that were transformed, and the glory of God showing up in places. And he began to tell these stories I'd never even heard of them. Somehow I'd lived my entire life and nobody told me that God showed up and saved cities. Nobody told me that entire nations were transformed. Nobody even told me about this thing called revival. And whenever he would speak about it, I would begin to feel this burning and this stirring in my heart. Then a man named Lou Engle came to our church one day and he began to preach, and he said, if you want to give yourself to prayer, if you want to be an intercessor for revival. And at 22 years old, I rushed the altar. I laid on the steps with hundreds of other people, and I cried out, God, I want to give myself fully to revival in the earth. I want to be somebody who lays my life down in prayer and intercession to see revival come to a nation. My heart began to burn within me. I began to read books. My heart was stirred. I began to read about Billy Graham. I began to read about Martin Luther King. I began to read about Frank Bartleman and the Azusa Street Revival in 1906. And I just found myself weeping. I would read this book about Azusa Street where God visited Los Angeles and a new Pentecost was released in the earth. And I just was weeping. I would cry and cry and cry through the book. Some books I just stopped reading in public. Catherine Kuhlman, who was a healing evangelist in the 60s and 70s, an incredible woman. She wrote 3 books that were on healings that happened in their ministry, and she would write the backstory and then how they came into their healing. And each chapter was a new story. And I remember reading these stories of people encountering the power of God. And I remember just in my early 20s, I would just weep, I would just cry. I would sob uncontrollably. In the most awkward places, I'd go to the bathroom and sit down and be reading, and I'd be on the toilet sobbing uncontrollably. My wife would be like, is everything okay? Yes. I really stopped reading them in public because I would be on a plane flying somewhere and I'd open up and I'd start reading about God's supernatural power healing somebody, and I'd be on the plane sobbing uncontrollably, just heaving, tears streaming down my face, people looking at me thinking, what? That's a good book. It's fiction romance. I'd be sobbing uncontrollably on the plane, just saying, God, I want to be used in the game. I want to engage in the cause of Christ. I don't want to sit on the sideline. I don't want to sit on some hill somewhere with a whole bunch of other people that think safety is the number one goal and comfort is it. I don't want to sit from a distance and every once in a while shout at the Philistines. I want to engage an army. You're a game changer, and the Lord begins to stir your heart. You come into places like this, and you hear the best white preacher you've ever heard in your entire life, and your heart begins to be stirred. Game changers first have a stirring, but the stirring requires a response. This is what I love. Jonathan's heart is stirred to engage. And he says this to his armor, he says, come, let us go over to the garrison of these uncircumcised. The stirring that begins to happen in your heart requires a response. It demands action from you. There is a yes in your spirit that has to happen in response to the stirring. And that yes has to be the determining factor for every other decision the rest of your life. I said yes to God so fully at 17, and that one yes has affected and influenced every other decision of my life. There is not one decision I make in my life right now that is not seen through the filter of my response to His stirring. Every decision in my life is filtered through, I said yes. Who I'm gonna marry was filtered through the yes. What I do with my life was filtered through the yes. Whether or not I watch this movie is filtered through the yes. Who I hang out with is filtered through the yes. You have to say yes in response to the stirring because it demands action on your part. And I want to tell you this, your response to the stirring does not happen in groups. As much as I love settings like this, I want to tell you this. It happens one-on-one with God. And maybe it happens one-on-one in this room. But my point is this. You do not say yes to God because other people say yes to God. You say yes to God all on your own. We have this mentality. I loved Bishop Jake's message last night. We have this pack mentality that if my friends say yes to God, I'll say yes to God. Listen, it doesn't work like that. You have to say yes to God. You'll stand before God one day on your own. You won't stand before God one day with your group of friends. You will not be able to say, well, we decided not to say yes. Your yes will be done in private, on your own. But what's encouraging about that is this. Revival never starts with the masses. It always starts with the few. If you've ever read the book Tipping Point, it's a great book. You should read it. It's actually on epidemics, like good epidemics, bad epidemics. But there's laws of epidemics. And Gladwell's first point is this. It's the law of the few. He says the epidemics are never started by the masses. They're always started by a handful of people. I mentioned on the first night this video, a man named Jeremiah Lamphere. Jeremiah Lamphere in 1857. In prayer one day, he said, Lord, what will you have me to do? His heart began to be stirred. Lord, what will you have me to do? And the Lord said, start a prayer meeting. He responded. He said, yes, he started a prayer meeting. And very shortly after that, across New York City, 10,000 people were praying every day at noon for revival. In the midst of one of the bleakest situations America had faced, there were people every day praying. It swept across all of America, where all over America at noon, people were praying. It resulted in 2 million people coming into the kingdom. Listen, this is in a, America at the time had a population of 30 million. Population of 30 million. If that was to happen today, the percentage, 18 million would come into the kingdom. One man in a population of 30 million, in response to the stirring in his heart, said yes to God, started a prayer meeting, and 2 million people came into the kingdom because of one man. Not the masses, one man. The yes in your life is the law of the few. I'm not looking for the masses. I'm looking for a handful of people. I can tell you this as well. The enemy's not even worried about the masses. There's a great phrase in Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, the story. It says there were certain Jews. You know, the enemy is not worried about Christians. He's worried about certain Christians. He's not worried about everybody that goes to church. He's worried about a handful of people that go to church. Because there's certain Christians that are going to give themselves so fully, that are going to obey God so completely, that their life is going to result in millions coming into the kingdom simply because they said yes. It is the law of the few. Revival starts with the law of the few. And I want to tell you this. Listen, we want to go with the masses sometimes, but Jonathan went with one other guy. He didn't tell anybody else. The Lord was stirring his heart in such a significant way. And you know what? He didn't tell anybody. He didn't tell his dad. He didn't tell anybody. He turned to his armor bearer and said, hey, listen, dude, my heart's stirring. I want to take on an army of the Philistines. Will you go with me? You know, he's like, are you serious? Yeah, I'm serious, dude. Let's do this. He's like, all right, let's go. And they sneak out. Nobody even knows they go. They sneak out. You want to know how you should pick your friends? This is what you should do. Here's how you should determine who you hang out with. Come back from this conference and say, listen, I heard the best white preacher in the world. And say, and tell him, guys, I want to get up every day and I want to show up to my workplace or my campus at 6 a.m. just to pray for revival. Who's with me? And then find out who shows up. You know, if they look at you and say, 6 a.m., I don't think I can do that. I need at least 15, 16 hours of sleep. I mean, I could die. I could die if I wake up that early. And I can't. I don't know if I can make that. And I mean, this is what I hear sometimes. We're like, you know, I'm like, get up a half an hour early and pray. A half an hour early, seriously? I need 14, 15 hours. I can't. I'm going to die. You know, I tell people, listen, I promise you, if you get up early in the morning and pray, you won't die. I said, just believe me on this. Just get up. Do it I promise you in 2 weeks, I will not get an email from your mom banning. My son got up in the morning for 2 weeks in a row, and now he's dead. This is how you start picking your friends, man. Hey, dude, I want to take on the entire campus in prayer. Will you get up with me every morning at 6 and pray? 6 a.m.? We could die. I know. We might die. I know. I've never gotten less than 15 hours of sleep, but I'm gonna try. It's for Jesus. And then you show up and you see who comes. That's who you hang out with. And you don't need a few. You don't need a lot. You just need a few. You just need a few that will be willing to actually get out and start walking towards the Philistines and saying, this is crazy, right? I know this is crazy. I know there's 2 of us. And there's a whole army. I know we're going to die, but let's do this thing. Come on. Like, you've got to find people that will give themselves to the cause of Christ. Jesus has a cause. He came to destroy the works of the devil. He came to restore ruined cities. He came that none should perish. He came to save that which was lost. He came to heal the land. He came to awaken hearts. That cause is now my cause. Jesus does not have a cause to sit on a hill in safety with all your friends. That's not where his cause is. His cause is over there. And so you find those friends. You say, you want to go? You want to go? Let's do this thing. I know this is crap. Let's do this. All right, let's go. But when you engage, when you respond, you encounter the impossibility. The Lord stirs you. There's a response. And then you face the impossibility. This is, you start walking. You're like, let's do this. Let's do this. And then you're about halfway there and you're like, did you know there was an entire army up there? Well, this is New York City, man, right? Did you hear everybody tells me New York City's hard. I know, I've heard the same thing, man. They are heathens. And you face impossibilities, you all of a sudden begin to realize that's a real army up there. There's a real cost. This is what I believe. I believe that right now there is a battle for hope in a generation. And it is around this issue. I believe that there is a battle for hope in this generation, and that hopelessness is beginning to creep into a generation in the church to get them to not engage. And it's around the issue of impossibilities. Joshua and Caleb, two other game changers. Joshua and Caleb, the 12 spies going to the land, you know the story. The 12 spies going to the land. And their job going into the land, God had already told them, I'm giving you the promised land. He said, I'm gonna give you this land, it's yours. He said, now what I need you to do is send 12 spies in to check it out. Let's get some strategy. Let's get a battle plan. Let's figure out how we're going to do this. This is their job. They go in. Instead of coming back with a battle plan, they came back scared. And 10 of them come back and say, dude, this is impossible. Like, those guys are giants. They're giants. It's great, man. Big, milk and honey and big fruit and grapes. And it's awesome. But their cities are fortified and there's giants. This is impossible odds. That's what 10 of them said. Instantly, there was a battle for hope. 10 of them instantly lost hope when they saw the impossible odds ahead of them. Except for 2 of them, Joshua and Caleb. These guys were game changers. And Joshua and Caleb would go, hold on. Like, the Lord's already told us he's given this land. Listen to Joshua's response. Can I tell you this? Because this is what happens. In between the stirring and the Lord beginning to stir your heart to go after his cause in the earth, in between the stirring and victory is a battle for hope. And hopelessness comes when you are faced with overwhelming odds. But I'm going to tell you right now, I am calling you into a battle that is overwhelming odds. But Joshua stands up and goes, hold on. Listen to Joshua. I love Joshua's response. I love this response. Listen to this. Numbers 14. He says this, if the Lord delights in us, then he will bring us into the land which flows with milk and honey. Only do not rebel against the Lord, nor fear the people of the land. Listen to this, for they are our bread. Their protection has departed from them, and the Lord is with us. Do not fear them. What I love about this, you want to know, this is what you have to get just deep in your spirit. You got to get this thing deep in there. I was born to take on giants. I will never be satisfied with anything else. My life was created to take on giants. And when I face impossible situations, when I face giants in my generation, I think in my heart, man, this is what I was born for. Joshua says, guys, listen, there are bread. That's what we feast on. You know what we feast on? We feast on giants. That's why he said, there are bread. Joshua's literally saying, we have giants for breakfast. I mean, he knew this is what we were born for. I believe God's raising up a generation that doesn't live in reality. And see, the enemy's trying to overwhelm you with odds. Do you know that kids are just natural dreamers? They just dreamers. And one of the ways you know this, because when you go and talk to them, like if I went and talked to my middle daughter, and I'm like, Raya, what do you want to be when you grow up? She's going to say some crazy outlandish thing like, Dad, I want to be an astronaut. And I'm an adult, and so I know enough not to crush her, but I'm like, all right, sweetie, you can whatever you put your mind to, you can accomplish. But I don't really believe that in the back of my mind. And the reason I don't believe that is because she lives in a different world than I live in. I live in a world called reality. And I got to reality. I didn't live in reality as a kid, but then slowly I kind of grew up, and as I became a teenager and as I became a young adult, I began to understand odds, and I began to understand statistics, and I began to hear stories of people that tried to be astronauts, and I began to, all this type of stuff. No, I don't come to her and say, sweetie, come here. Listen. There's over 300 million people that live in America. Yeah, I know. And only like 5 become astronauts. And maybe like one of those is a female. So, sweetie, you're what we call a long shot. Or the odds are against you. I need you to remember this saying, the odds are against you, okay? Figure something else out to do. I don't say that to her, but I realize, I understand odds and statistics and population numbers and stories. But you were born for giants. You were born for the impossible. And you want to know how you're going to face that? You want to know how you're going to stand up like Joshua in your generation and say, listen, guys, we got this one. Oh, they're fortified cities, and there's some pretty big dudes in there, but we got them. You want to know how you're going to do that? If you understand this one fact. God doesn't live in reality. Listen, you serve a God who doesn't live in reality. God is not confined in the realm of odds and statistics. He is not overwhelmed by the fact that it's never been done before. We don't come to say, God, I want to see abortion end in America. And God doesn't look at us and say, man, a lot of people have tried that. They really have, and it just hasn't worked. I'm not sure what I can do for you, Listen, Jonathan was a game changer because he understood God doesn't live in reality. His armor bearers with him going, dude, you realize there's 2 of us, right? Like you didn't tell anybody else about this. Like somehow you want to do this in secret or something. And there's 2 of us. And you realize that at the top of that mountain, there's an entire army of the Philistines, right? And Jonathan turns to him and says, oh man, listen. God can save by many or by few. He's like, listen. God doesn't live in the realm of reality. He doesn't live in the realm of odds. God's not like, Jonathan, there's like 2 of you. What are you expecting me to do over there? He said, God can save with us. Listen, God can save an entire city through 2 of us, or he can save an entire city through thousands of us. Whatever. God can do whatever he wants because he doesn't live in the realm of odds. The church has bought into reality, and they buy into reality by being overwhelmed with impossible odds. Media gives you impossible odds. All you ever hear about is the horrible stuff happening and how people tried and it didn't work. You're a game changer. You just got to believe it. You got to live like it. You got, Jonathan's like, I'm a game changer. Listen, I don't know what happened before, but I'm about to get in the game, and you don't understand. I'm a game changer. Like when I walk in, game just changed. Listen, I don't care who they have on their team. I'm a game changer. They can have giants on their team all they want. When I get in, everything just shifts. You got to walk like this. You got to believe this. You got to do this. I tell you, I believe that the enemy has underestimated an entire generation in America. I believe the enemy is so trying to get you to be, to be so distracted and so caught up in sin and so caught up in that he's tried to overwhelm. He thinks he thinks somehow he has a hold on a generation. I'm telling you right now, the enemy has underestimated a generation. You know what the Philistines are doing? The Philistines, they're sitting on the top of the hill, cocky and arrogant. And they say two guys, and they're like, look at these little sissies. They're coming out of a hole. So they say, listen, let's call them up like we want to talk to them, and then we're going to kill them. So they said, hey, why don't you come on up here? You know what they don't realize? They're talking to game changers. That's what they do. They don't realize, oh, these guys they're about to whoop us. I'm not sure I would have invited you up if I would have known that. These guys invited up the very guys that God was going to use to defeat them. They called them up. Jonathan says, listen, if they call us up, they've underestimated us. This was his plan. Jonathan says, listen, if they tell us to come up, they're ours. You want to know why they're ours? They've underestimated us. They don't realize. Everything's about to shift. And I believe in America the same things happen. I believe the enemy has underestimated a generation. I think he thinks he's got a hold on him, and I'm in rooms like this, and I'm going, oh, man, listen, you don't even know what's coming, man. You do not know what's coming. There is a generation of game changers. You have underestimated them. You're calling them up to taunt them, and they're about to climb up that hill. And when they climb up that hill, entire cities are going to be saved. Entire campuses are going to be transformed. Nations of the earth are going to be changed. But game changers have to cross the point of no return. And this is very important to understand. Jonathan and his armor bearer, when the enemy called him up, you know what they did? Listen, if you know military strategy at all, you know this. A higher elevation position is better than lower. These guys had better position, and Jonathan and his armor bearer, listen, the phrase is this, climbed up on his hands and knees. He threw his weapons on his back, completely exposed, got on his hands and knees, and started climbing that mountain. Completely exposed to the enemy. You wanna know what he's doing? He was crossing something called the point of no return. As a game changer, you're going to have to do this. I mean, you come face to face with this thing. I'm going to have to cross the point of no return. This is what separates people. This is what weeds people out. The point of no return. So you've got to get to a place in your life where there is no plan B. There is no plan B. You know what the point of no return is? The point of no return, when I was growing up, we grew up in Redding where it's just hot. It's hot. It gets like 115 during the summer. And so what we did was we would always go swimming, like lakes and pools and creeks and rivers and bathtubs, whatever we could find, we would go. And we would go cliff jumping, though. We do this thing where we go cliff jumping. And I'm not recommending this for everybody under 18, but and we would find, there was this one place we'd go, and it was called Hog's Back. It was in Red Bluff, California. And it was this bend in a creek. It was this deep creek, like 15, 20 feet deep. And they had these cliffs, like 20 feet, 40 feet, 60-foot cliffs. And we would go all the time. And one day this girl, Amy, she said, Benning, can I go with you and your friends when you guys go cliff jumping? I said, sure, absolutely. So we're in high school, I'm like 17. We go, let's go. We go out there, we're going to spend the afternoon. And Amy comes. We're swimming around, hanging out, all this stuff's happening. And then Amy turns halfway through and says, guys, I'm gonna go jump. And we're like, all right, go for it, that'd be awesome. And so she climbs up this mountain and gets on the 40-foot cliffs. And she goes and she stands there and she puts her toes off, and we're all swimming down there. She says, all right, guys, I'm gonna jump, are you ready? We're like, we're ready, Amy, do it. She goes, all right, here I go. All right, guys, I don't know what's going on, my legs aren't moving. We said, you could do it. Okay, all right, I can do it, I can do it. This is going to be awesome. I'm going. Okay, literally my legs won't respond to my brain sending them signals. So we were encouraging her, and she wouldn't jump, and so we finally just gave up on her, and we were swimming, and she stood up there about every 15 minutes. She'd, all right, guys, I'm going. Okay, I'm not really. I don't know what's going on. 2 hours. 2 hours. She stood on the edge of that cliff. 2 hours. I'm jumping. Till finally we left. We left, and she came with us. She never jumped. Do you want to know why cliff jumping's so like thrilling and exhilarating and scary? It's because there's something in cliff jumping called the point of no return. And it's an invisible line right here. Right? This is where it's at. It's right here. And you actually don't cross the point of no return by just standing on the cliff. You don't even cross it when you kind of dangle your foot and like, oh man. You actually don't cross the point of no return until you actually step off the cliff. And when you step off the cliff, you know you've crossed it because halfway down you can't go, whoa, 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 time out. Woo! Can I go back up? This is way scarier than I thought. I can see it in people's eyes when they've crossed the point of no return. You can't have, whoa, 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 whoa. I had no idea I was going to lose all of my friends. Whoa, whoa, time out. I had no idea he was going to make me give up on my music. I didn't know like getting over that line meant I can't listen to Beyonce anymore. Are you serious? Time out. Not that I have a problem with Beyonce, but just what came to my mind. That's that point of no return. Jonathan and his armor bearer throw their weapons on their back, get on their hands and knees, and start climbing. Like they're not going back. It's not like halfway up going, this is a really dumb idea. You got to cross the point of no return. If you're going to be a game changer, if you're going to be somebody who changes the game in a generation, if you're going to be somebody who changes the game on a campus, who changes the game in a realm of society, who changes the game in a nation, if you're going to be a game changer, you must, non-negotiable, cross the point of no return. Man, I see so many people, they come and they kind of get on. They come to church every week and they come to conferences and they raise their hand and they got their feet just sticking over and they never jump. I talk to youth, young adults all the time. They're like, God's boring. I'm like, God's not boring. You're boring. Yeah, listen. Yeah. The only time you would ever think Christianity is boring is if you're standing on the edge of a cliff. Can you imagine me? Hey, listen, I want to show you cliff jumping. It's unbelievably fun. And then I bring my friend over and we stand here. Is this amazing? I know. Woo! Is this what we do? Yeah, we just stand here. We don't actually jump. Did you think we were going to jump? No, we don't actually jump. I just stand here for a couple hours. But man, it's thrilling. I do it every Wednesday night. I'll even do it on Sundays. It's amazing. Woo! I mean, listen. Christianity is only boring when you don't jump. That's it. If you're bored with your Christianity, you know why I'm in New York? Because there's people standing on the cliff that I just want to do this to. That's my mandate in life. You want to know my single mandate in life is to just push people off. Sorry. My bad. It's more exciting though, isn't it? You should be a little scared, in your Christianity. You should be a little scared. You should be like, I hope this works out, man. I'm gonna go talk to that guy. He's like the star athlete on our campus. I'm freaking out. I'm going. Are you going? You go. Yeah, you go. This is it. You know, you got to burn your bridges. You know the phrase, burning your bridges? An army would go into a territory that they were going to conquer, and as they would get in, they would go into a land, and they would turn around, and they would burn their bridges behind them. And you know what they were doing? They were making a point of no return. They would say, listen, we are eliminating all options to go back. We have one option. It's to go forward. We will either be victorious or we will die. That's it. I will never be able to go back because I've crossed the point of no return. If the band's here, they can come. I think what the Lord's doing is he's beginning to put a focus on a generation for revival. He's beginning to give them tunnel vision for one thing. It's revival in a nation. I remember one time my dad, who was a police officer all my growing up, one of his officers, I don't want to get into the whole story, but one of his partners got shot. And he was chasing an actual bank robber, and he came around a corner and the guy shot him like in his shoulder and his leg, and he was fine. He lived through it. He actually was fine. But when I talked to him, I was like a young man, and I saw him later, and I was like, dude, what was it like getting shot? That is crazy. And he was telling me about something that happens. I forget what it was called. But what happens is when you get into a high stress impact situation, like being shot, your mind begins to do stuff. And he said what happens is like literally your peripheral vision will turn off. Anything that you don't need for that moment shuts down. Your peripheral vision, he said, will shut off. Many times your hearing will go off. He says, your mind actually begins to slow things down and brings into focus just the problem. He says that many times guys won't even bleed to death because your body will shut down the outer layer of flow of blood. And I listened to his story, and after that I was on my knees praying. I was just in my prayer time praying, and the Lord said, I'm doing that exact thing to you right now. I am shutting down things in your life to give you one single focus, the cause of Christ in my nation. And I see this happening in a generation. You cross that point of no return, and you want to know what happens? All of a sudden, things begin to fall away that don't matter anymore. All of a sudden, you begin to get this singular focus that says, I don't care if people don't like me. I don't care if I'm made fun of. I don't care if this costs me something. I've got one purpose in life. I've got one focus in life. I'm going after revival on my campus. Nothing else matters but seeing souls saved. Nothing else matters but seeing my generation awaken to the love of Christ. Nothing else matters but seeing restored, ruined cities restored. Nothing else matters. I want to tell you this. I started tonight by saying that I believe the moment that we are in is seeing the head of this baby that we've been praying for in America. I believe that God is going to release an awakening across America. He is going to pour out a spirit on an entire generation. We are going to see entire cities saved. We are going to see campuses saved. We are going to see laws changed. We are going to see poverty broken. We are going to see cancer-free zones. This is what we are moving towards. He is going to release it in the nation. I am around a generation that I am physically laying eyes on, saying that is the generation right there. I can see it. In 1906, in 1904, one of the greatest revivals the world's ever seen was called the Welsh Revival. It happened in Wales in 1904. There's a young man in his 20s named Evan Roberts who led this revival. It spread around the world, impacted the entire nation. But he saw the head of the baby. This is what he said. On Monday, October 31st, 1904, 17 young people. The Lord had so lit Evan Roberts on fire. He had so been ignited for revival. that he went and he gathered a handful of young people. 17 young people stayed for a meeting with Evan Roberts. It was a hard meeting, but by the end, all 17 had confessed Christ. He spoke a few times that week. Listen to this. One meeting with 17 young people, all of them confessing Christ. A few days later, on Friday, at the end of the week, November 4th, Evan Roberts, because of 17 young people that stood up and confessed Christ in the meeting, he writes a newspaper and said, "We are on the eve of a great and grand revival, the greatest the world has ever seen. Do not think that this writer is a madman." Evan Roberts wrote a newspaper a few days after he came to a meeting where 17 young people, all of them, stood up and confessed Christ. But he saw what he had been praying for, and he knew this is it. This is it. And he wrote the newspaper and said, "Listen, the greatest revival the world's ever seen is about to happen. Because I was just in a meeting with 17 young people that all confessed Christ." This revival spread around the world. Do you want to know why I believe revivals? Or why revival is imminent in America? There's a book called talking about this actual revival. It's called World of Flame. Rick Joyner wrote it. And in the book, he makes an interesting point. He says, all around Wales, two years before 1904, 2 years before it broke out, all around Wales, prayer groups and prayer meetings were popping up, unbeknownst to one another, disconnected from one another. Prayer meetings were popping up in homes all over the nation. And he makes a point, and he says this. He ties it in with birth pangs and a baby. He said, birth pangs don't create the baby creates the birth pangs. Right? He said it was so his point was this: all of those prayer meetings that were happening for 2 years before revival broke out in Wales didn't cause the revival caused the prayer meetings. Are you with me on this? Let me tell you this. You want to know what? You want to know why? I know that there's an awakening that's about to sweep across America. You want to know why I believe we are in revival right now? Because we have the opportunity to travel across the nation, city after city after city. And we experience what we experienced tonight. Not 17, thousands that are giving themselves fully to Jesus. We're experiencing people that are so stirred in their heart to no longer sit on the sidelines of history in a nation, but to fully engage the cause of Christ, no matter what the cost, to engage the cause of Christ. They are crossing the point of no return, and I'm seeing it with my own physical eyes. And you know what I'm realizing? You want to know why you're worshiping so hard tonight? Because revival. I believe the awakening in a generation is what's causing your seeking. I believe that revival is causing your prayer. I believe that a move of God, an outpouring of the Holy Spirit, it's what's stirring your heart to pursue Him like never before. I don't even know how all this works, but I'm not even sure if our prayer brings revival. I just think revival brings our prayers. And I'm encouraged by the fact that people would gather on Long Island for 3 days to pursue God, because in my heart I know, oh man, New York doesn't even know this. The enemy doesn't even realize this. The Northeast can't even fathom this. That revival is coming. You want to know why I know it? Because there are birth pains happening. And I know the only reason birth pains happen is because a baby is about to come. The only reason there's a generation seeking God, because He's about to show up. He's about to save cities. He's about to sweep across universities. And I know this because I can see Him worshiping. I want you to stand with me tonight. If I could get with each one of you individually, I would grab you by the shoulders. I would look at you straight in the eyes and I would say, listen to me. You are a game changer. Respond to the stirring that's in your heart. You've got to say yes. Respond to the stirring that's burning deep within you. Cross the point of no return. There is nothing else to do right now but give yourself fully to the cause of Christ and the earth. There is nothing else going on. Nothing else matters. Nothing else matters. The cause of Christ is all that matters. And going to every round, be an NBA player, burning for the cause of Christ in a nation. Be a doctor, burning for the cause of Christ in a nation. Be an actor, burning for the cause of Christ in a nation. But nothing else matters. When you understand the time, when you understand the moment, when you see the head of the baby, you got to give everything to push. I want you to lift your hands in here. It's been an amazing 3 days with you guys. I am so absolutely stirred in my heart. But I want us tonight, we are going to commit to pursue Jesus with everything in us. We are going to absolutely commit. I'm going to give everything to going after God. I'm going to give everything to following Him. My life will be abandoned. I'm asking God that He would so wreck you tonight that you would be ruined for everything but revival, that nothing in your life would satisfy you but a nation being saved, that nothing would satisfy you but your cities being transformed, that you would be so ruined from this week that you would leave and say, I can never go back to normal life. Normal life no longer exists for me. I don't even know what normal life was, but I jumped off some cliff. And I've crossed the point of no return, and I am scared out of my mind. But I've only got one option. I'm on my hands and knees right now. I'm climbing up the top of a hill. There's an army up there, but I was born to take on armies. I was born to take on giants. I'm going to be bored with anything else. I can't imagine just working a 9-to-5 job to get a paycheck. I want to take on giants. I want to take on entire armies. I want the devil to look at me in Hollywood and taunt me and underestimate me, and I'm going to start climbing up that mountain because you don't even understand, devil. I am a game changer. You're calling up somebody right now that's about to shift everything in a nation. Every time you feel overwhelming odds, every time you feel overwhelming odds, you got to understand, oh man, he's just trying to intimidate me. What he doesn't realize is I don't live in reality. I don't live in reality. There's 8 million people in the city of New York. That doesn't matter. I'm here. Lift your hands. I told you to lift them, and then I talked to you for a while. Here we are, God. Here we are. They're not 17 in this room. There's thousands in this room. If 17 people can spark one of the greatest revival the world's ever seen, if 17 people can see an entire nation of Wales impacted, if 17 people can spark what eventually became the Azusa Street Revival, I'm telling you, what can thousands do that would give themselves fully?